In fact, we have pored over all 4 versions of this story and condensed it into a single line that goes like this. Jesus feeds 5,000 people with a boy's lunch of 5 loaves and 2 fish. And then we move on. We're quite familiar with the storyline. Jesus has planned some quiet time with his disciples. They have retreated to the city of Bethsaida, the hometown of Peter and Andrew and Philip, hoping to be alone for a while. But a crowd finds them. Jesus accepts the interruption. He welcomes the crowd. He teaches them about the kingdom of God, and he heals those who need to be cured. While doing this, his trusted disciples are assessing the situation. It is growing late in the afternoon. The crowd is large. This is a deserted place. The people will need time to find food and lodging in the near cities and countryside before dark sets in. I am confident they were trying to be helpful when they suggested that Jesus offer the benediction and send the people away. But after they've made their recommendation, Jesus startles them when he says, You feed them something to eat. Immediately the disciples assess the situation again. They only have 5 loaves and 2 fish. To feed this crowd of thousands, they would have to go and buy food, buy the bread. So Jesus hears of their dilemma, takes their loaves and their fishes, looks to heaven, blesses them, breaks them into pieces, and gives them to the disciples to share with the crowd. Everyone eats until they are full. And there was such an abundance that there were 12 basketfuls of leftovers. End of story. Sometimes our familiarity with a Bible story makes it hard for us to hear and to see some of the things that may have been going on. Sometimes we do distill the story into a single line. Jesus feeds 5,000. Move on. Next story. But this morning, for a few minutes, I would like to take our eyes off the crowd of 5,000. And I would like for us to turn away from the miracle of feeding this crowd with 5 loaves and 2 fish. For I want us to hear clearly what Jesus said to his disciples that day. He said, You give them something to eat. I want us to feel the perplexity of his disciples when they realized we have nothing more than a few loaves and fish unless somehow we go buy food for all these people. I want us to hear Jesus calling them into collaboration with him. Sit the people down in groups of 50. Give me your loaves and your fish. I want us to see with our eyes, if we can, the disciples serving what Jesus has provided for this crowd. I want us to do this today because in churches all across America, today is World Hunger Day. Today, Christians everywhere are pondering the plight of hungry people in their neighborhoods, in their cities, and around the world. They're also praying, I hope, for visions of what they might do to alleviate the hunger of suffering women, men, and children. This year, I chose not to make a big deal about World Hunger Day. In the past, we have done lots of things in an attempt to raise your awareness of hunger. We have bombarded you with statistics. We have informed you of how small a donation it takes to feed a child nutritiously for a single day. 3 little pennies out of your pocket. We have encouraged you on some Sundays to take from us bean soup, prepare it at home as a simple meal, and then give what you might have spent in a restaurant to help alleviate world hunger. We have brought computers out and had them available to you so that on your way out after the benediction you could stop, click on a website, make a single click, and empower corporate America to feed a child for a single day in America. And we have given you the address of that website and have invited to send you a link through an email that every day, without you doing a thing, that email pops up and you make a click and corporate America buys food for children around the world. We have shared with you information about World Vision, Compassion International, Bread for the World, and all kinds of other organizations seeking in some way to address the needs of the hungry in our world. And as a body of Christ called Immanuel, like the disciples, we have assessed the situation. And we are seeking to respond compassionately to the needs of the poor and the hungry in our city and around the world. In our church budget, you will find these allocations. For Martha's Vineyard, who feeds people in our community in their homes, $1,500. For Community Kitchen down on Broadway, $1,500. A gift to World Hunger through the Baptist World Alliance and Kentucky Baptist Convention, $4,000. And almost every year you match that $4,000 in designated gifts to World Hunger. Once a month, as we will do this Thursday evening, we feed the residents of River City Mission a meal that we come and prepare for them 12 times a year at an approximate cost of $2,500. Last year, which was a very difficult year in our community, we shared $15,000 with folks in our neighborhood, in our city, who were in difficult straits, who could not meet their obligations, who faced the possibility of heat or gas or water being turned off, their homes being evicted from their apartments and their homes, of not having enough for families and children. Each week, as a very tangible expression of our compassion to 28 children at Clark Elementary, Robin from the school picks up these bags of food intended to keep hunger away from elementary school children over the weekend when they can't get breakfast and lunch at school. So in this bag every week, you place a couple of boxes of cereal, some animal crackers, some healthy Vienna sausage. Now we know this is not healthy, but this is the favorite thing that the children receive. They ask for it. Ramen noodle soup, big can of beef ravioli, some applesauce, some Nutri-Grain breakfast bars, and some juice. And a little Nature Valley peanut sandwich of some sort. Now, when a child takes this bag home, we have no idea what happens to it. We don't know if a parent takes it away from the child and divvies it up for the whole family. We don't know if a parent takes the bag and uses it for themselves and does not share it at all with the children. We simply don't know. Robin tries to help us know how many children are in each home, so that some homes we send 2 bags to rather than 1. That little bag costs about $5.25 a week, 1 bag. So in our assessing the situation of hunger, we allocate almost and give almost $35,000 a year to meet the needs of the hungry and the needy in our community, in our neighborhood, in our city. Yes, like the disciples, we have assessed the situation. And we are supporting collectively and individually organizations that address the needs of the hungry and the poor in our city. But somehow that doesn't seem to be quite satisfactory to me this morning, because I can hear Jesus saying to us, you give them something to eat. In 2014, the world population is expected to be approximately 7 billion people. 7 billion. In 2014, the number of Christians worldwide is expected to be 2.2 billion people. Christians of all traditions make up 1/3 of the world's population. And Christianity is by far the world's largest major religion. Across the globe, it is projected that today there are 805 million people facing hunger. Now, I don't know about how you sit and how you look at this, but 2.2 billion Christians in the world and 805 million hungry people in the world, that doesn't look to me nearly as daunting as 12 disciples and 5,000 plus men and women. In 2014, the population of the United States is projected to be 317 million. Almost 75% of Americans identify themselves as Christian, which means there are approximately 238 million Christians in the United States. According to numbers available in 2012, there were 14 million children living in poverty in America. Now, I'm aware that some of these children may be accounted among the Christians in America, but even so, that is 1 child per 17 Christians in America. That doesn't sound nearly as daunting to me as 12 disciples and 5,000 plus men, women, and children. In 2010, a friend of mine, who's a sociologist studying religion in America, identified that there were approximately 320,000 churches in America, Catholic, Protestant, and evangelical. Some scholars who study the same data suggest there may be 450,000 churches in America. So, consider this. On a January evening in 2013, approximately 610,000 homeless people were counted in America. If my math is right, and it is questionable, that would be 2 homeless people per church in America, if we go with the conservative figure of 320,000 churches. At least from where I sit, these numbers give a new perspective on hunger and homelessness in America. And given this new perspective, the words of Jesus become even more challenging to my ears. You give them something to eat. You give them a place to lodge. And it seems to me this morning on World Hunger Day, when we're not beating a drum about it, this needs to sink deep into our consciousness. Recently, we have shared with you that the homeless shelter for single women with young families operated by Paducah Cooperative Ministry is having to close in our city. For many, many years, we have been fortunate to have apartments and the housing projects in which we, along with other congregations in our city, could house homeless women with children. There is no facility in this region for homeless single women with small children. Some between 25 and 40 homeless women and children are housed from a few days to 6 months in this facility that is closing. There are 49 Baptist congregations composing the West Union Baptist Association, of which we are members. 49 churches to 25 to 40 homeless women and children in our region does not sound too daunting when compared to 12 disciples and 5,000 men and women and children. Recently, aware that this was going to happen soon, I began to say in different places on Wednesday night, in Sunday school classes and other places, that it seems to me that in a congregation as large as ours, someone would know, a single woman with small children, who's trying her best to find a new path to walk on. A single mother with children, or a man, or a family for that matter, I won't be choosy, struggling to make ends meet, that might awaken to a new day and a new morning if we could befriend and support them with our presence, with our love, and with our financial resources, so that they might move to a more stable life that is not threatened by the fear of not having enough to eat or water at the tap or heat to warm their bodies. When I mentioned this, I immediately learned that there are already resources in our community that would help us achieve this task, if only we knew. But shamefully, I must confess, I have not encountered this young woman or this young man or this family. And to date, no one has introduced me to this young man, this young woman, or this family. Is it possible that we do not know anyone who needs such help from a congregation like ours? And you may be wondering this morning why I think it is important that we move from assessing the situation like the disciples to collaborating with Jesus to feed the hungry and lodge the homeless. I think that it is time that we should know their names. And the reason for knowing their names is quite simple. Because among them, Jesus is hidden from us in plain sight. Out there among the poor and the hungry, Jesus is hungry and he needs to be fed. Jesus is naked and he needs to be clothed. Jesus is imprisoned and he needs to be visited. Jesus is sick and there's no one to care for him. Jesus is alone and no one has come to befriend him. Jesus is hidden among the least of our brothers and our sisters. And it is certainly a failure of our faith if we don't recognize their faces and know their names. There's a little known truth revealed in the New Testament and the Gospels after the resurrection of Jesus. And this truth is this: that Jesus, after being raised from the dead, only appeared to those whom had known him before the scandalous cross. He comes to the upper room. He meets the two on the road to Emmaus. He gathers at one time with more than 150 and then maybe as many as 5,000, but he doesn't appear. He doesn't appear to Herod or Caiaphas or Pilate or the centurion that oversaw his crucifixion. He appears only to those whom he had known, and even often their eyes could not see him. But this he did promise to us: if you want to see me, if you want to find me, if you want to feed or clothe me or befriend me or care for me, you may find me among the hungry, the poor, the naked, the thirsty, the imprisoned, the lonely. It's so much easier to assess a situation, to write a check, to click a button, than it is to stoop down and to look into the faces of the hungry and the homeless and to learn their names. It is much easier to write a check than to befriend them and walk with them through the ups and downs and the struggles and the trials. It is very difficult sometimes to slide down and sit by them on the ground. And the words of Jesus still come to us. And the invitation still awaits for our collaboration with Jesus. You give them something to eat. And to do this, we only have to share what we have: 5 loaves and a few fishes. We only have to do what Jesus tells us to do: sit them down, serve them the pieces. We only need to have the scales removed from our eyes to realize that Jesus is hiding from us in plain sight. And the poor and the lonely